All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful thought experiments in all of modern philosophy. What if you had the chance to design a perfectly fair society from the ground up? Sounds good, right? But here's the catch. You'd have absolutely no idea what your own place in it would be. That's the mind-bending idea behind John Rawls's veil of ignorance.
I mean, let's just think about the basic problem for a second. Whenever we talk about what's fair, we can't help but see it through the lens of our own lives, our jobs, our money, our beliefs, you name it. If you're well off, you're probably going to think lower taxes are fair. If you're struggling to get by, maybe you see higher taxes on the rich as the only fair thing to do. So the question is, how do we possibly get past our own built-in biases to agree on rules that are genuinely just for everybody?
Well, this is where the philosopher John Rawls comes in with a really ingenious solution. He realized you can't just tell people to be less biased. It doesn't work. So instead, he created a thought experiment that makes our biases completely and utterly useless.
He asks us to imagine ourselves in what he calls the original position. Now, think of this like a giant cosmic meeting before society even begins. You're there with everyone else, and your job is to design a new world from scratch. You get to decide the most fundamental bedrock principles, the basic structure that's going to shape every single person's life. But of course, there's a huge catch. And this right here is the star of the show, the veil of ignorance. The moment you step into this original position, a metaphorical veil just drops over you, and it completely erases any knowledge of who you will be in the society you're about to design. It's a clever trick, a tool designed for one single purpose, to force total and complete impartiality. And just think about everything this veil hides. It's not just about whether you'll be rich or poor. You don't know if you'll be naturally brilliant or struggle with learning, strong or frail. You have no idea what your race will be, your gender, your age. You don't even know your own deepest religious or moral beliefs. You are essentially stripped of every single detail that could possibly give you an unfair advantage in the negotiations. And this is the core logic, which is just brilliant. Rawls called this pure procedural justice. It's kind of like the old trick for cutting a cake fairly between two people. One person cuts, and the other person gets to choose their slice first. The person cutting, out of pure self-interest, is forced to make the cut as even as humanly possible. The veil of ignorance does the exact same thing, but for the rules of society. If you can make the process perfectly fair, then whatever rules come out of that process have to be just. Okay, so you're behind the veil, you're a rational person, but you are a complete blank slate. The stakes are as high as they could possibly be. This is the world you'll have to live in. So, what principles do you choose? How do you even start to think about it?
Well, Rawls argues that you'd use a very cautious, very conservative strategy he called maximin. It's simple, really. You would look at all the possible societies you could build, one based on pure liberty, one on maximizing happiness, one on strict equality, whatever. And for each system, you'd look at the absolute worst-off person. What's their life like? Then, you'd pick the system where that worst-off person is doing better than they would be in any other system. In other words, you maximize the minimum outcome.
And this makes perfect sense, right? You wouldn't gamble with your future. You wouldn't risk being born into slavery or some oppressed minority group just for the chance of maybe ending up as a king. No way. You're going to build a society with a really strong safety net because for all you know, you'll be the one who needs it the most.
Rawls says this line of thinking leads everyone behind the veil to agree on two fundamental principles of justice. The first one is the top priority. It's absolutely non-negotiable. Everyone gets the most extensive set of basic liberties possible as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's liberties. We're talking freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, the right to vote, that whole package. You can't trade these freedoms away for anything.
Okay, so once those basic rights are locked in, we get to the second principle. This one deals with social and economic inequalities. The fact that some people will have more wealth and status than others. And you'd agree that inequality is okay, but only if two very strict conditions are met. First, every single person has to have a fair and equal opportunity to get the best jobs and positions. And second comes the famous difference principle. Any inequalities that do exist must be set up to provide the greatest possible benefit to the least advantaged members of society. Now, this is a really powerful idea. This isn't about charity or handouts. It's about building a system of reciprocity. It means society should be structured so that when some people get richer, the rules that allow them to do that also work to improve the lives of the people at the very bottom as much as possible. A rising tide has to lift all boats, sure, but it has to lift the boats on the bottom the highest. Now, as you can probably guess, this theory didn't just land without making some waves. It caused a massive philosophical debate that's still going on today. Is this abstract, detached person behind the veil really the right way to think about justice? One of the biggest challenges came from a group of thinkers we call the communitarians.
For example, the philosopher Michael Sandel argued that this person behind the veil is an unencumbered self, kind of like an abstract ghost, totally disconnected from the communities, the history, and the values that actually make us who we are. He said you can't make decisions about justice in a vacuum. But Rawls had a fantastic response. He clarified that the veil of ignorance isn't a theory about human nature or our souls. It's just a device of representation. It's a tool. He said the theory is political, not metaphysical, meaning it's a practical way for all of us, with our different beliefs, to find fair rules for living together without having to agree on the meaning of life.
So, okay, this is a really cool abstract idea, but why should we care about it today in the real world? Because its real power isn't as some kind of blueprint for a new government, but as a mental model that every single one of us can use.
The veil of ignorance gives us this incredibly useful tool for our own lives. Next time you're thinking about a political policy, doesn't matter what it is, healthcare, taxes, anything, just try it. Ask yourself, would I still support this law if I had no idea whether I was going to be the doctor or the patient, the CEO or the janitor, the person born here or the person trying to immigrate? It's like a built-in bias checker. It forces you to step outside of your own shoes and argue from a place of genuine fairness.
So let me just leave you with this one question to think about. If it were you behind that veil, and you were betting your entire future on the rules you were making, what is the one, single, non-negotiable rule that you would fight for no matter what? Your answer to that question tells you a lot about what you really believe justice is all about.